through a little tour of the space. I think a lot of you guys have, like I said, I've seen you guys out there. We've got events, we've got gallery shows. We're there working all the time. But basically what we set up is a studio in the Kinsey Corridor, 1821 Hubbard. So, you know, like Chad was saying, one of the goals was to get hands-on work materials there. So a letterpress, silk screen studio set up, all sorts of that, just work tape where you can go in and draw. You know, really set up, again, a studio atmosphere, so it's almost like what you guys have here. Or anyone who's been to school, you know, there's someone around working 24/7. If you want feedback, it's there. If you want to go off on your own, it's there. So it gelled really, really quickly. It soon moved beyond being this sort of open workspace studio thing into this gallery and more of a hub for people to come. Someone want to talk about sort of the family room extension? What that's all about?
What's that?
You talk about the family. You want to talk about the extension?
What's our gallery?
Yes.
So, well, I guess the family room was a pretty natural extension from our blog, yeah, in some ways. So we just, the blog was well, yeah, let's start with the blog real. So the blog.
This is blog.
Okay. So what we started with was a much more simplified version of this site. It was literally 2 columns. We had this streaming archive of random stuff that we liked that was in all forms of visual art and design. And then we had our store. Primarily, all we really wanted to do was have some space where we could sell our goods and make just enough money so we didn't have to pay rent for our space. And also be able to buy some facilities, letterpress, screen printing materials, and whatnot. That just absolutely took off. We were getting so much traffic, and we felt the desire from that to just keep building on this and getting into more things on that. So more featured interviews and doing, talking to artists, talking to musicians, touring other spaces. We fell in love. We wanted more and more content. We loved this idea of sharing it. And this platform of online space was great, but then it really came down to the physicality of it. I think we love meeting people in person. We love the discussions. We love these warm, engaging spaces. And I think the idea behind the family room is we really wanted a space where people would love to go to and spend a lot of time there. Because we're kind of off the beaten path slightly, people needed a good enough reason to go there and stay there for a little bit so that, they could make that kind of investment. So, we have so many talented friends. We have such a great community all over the country and the world. And so the idea was, we're picking all these people up on the site. Let's start bringing them into our space. And so we ended up moving from a smaller space upstairs in our building down to a gallery. It was already a gallery, Lisa Boyle and Western Exhibitions, who already had an incredible reputation in the city. They're brilliant. And they were moving on up, and we slid right into their space and jumped right into the gallery scene. And it was fantastic right off the bat. We were trying to get as many of our unique people in our neighborhood and locally into the space with a very kind of, you can see here, this is the front space, so a pretty formal gallery unit experience. But as you move back into the space, you get into our workrooms, and things like couches, and our letterpress room. So the idea is, as you kind of move back into the space, it gets a little bit more informal, and you kind of start moving into our family room. And the idea is you can kind of come into the space and view art, and talk, and hang out, and have some drinks.
I think those are pretty, a lot of the way things have worked for us has been just by a matter of putting ourselves in the right sort of situations and things like this happen. We started showing work just by instinctively having a studio and wanting to show it off. And being in this building, just by happenstance, there was a gallery downstairs that was moving out. And we had relationships with the people who run the unit, and they said, you might be interested in this space. So, a lot of the choices that we've made, a lot of the ways we've proceeded certain things have just happened because we've been in the right at the right time. And I think what's been unique about us is our ability to sort of adapt to the circumstances. So like once we had this space, it was white walls and it was track lighting, it was like a legitimate gallery. It made sense. We already had this community, these connections, and this art to put out there. And the thing that's kind of neat about our space is because it's a functioning, working studio, people are there during the day making things. It's not like your typical gallery experience, which I feel a lot, which is, you walk into a gallery, you get your little cup of wine, you do your walk, you wait for your friends, you do another lap, and then you move on to the next gallery or something like that. And because of where we are, that's not really an option. So people, there's no wine, typically there's beer, and they drink their beer, and they hang out, and they go sit on the couch in the back room, and they talk about art, and they talk about their day, and sometimes it breaks out into a dance party. It typically does, but
most of the time. It may just be one of us left in this dance party.
Absolutely. but it was a happy, we had this great space, and we had these circumstances, and what we've been pretty good at is sort of just being like, let's facilitate this, let's make it work, and it happened very organically, like everything.
The other thing that's good is, we didn't start a gallery to make large amounts of money, if any money at all. We're not against making money. In fact, it would be great if we started to in certain venues. But so it kind of frees us from that curation model where you're bringing in artists that demand top dollar for their work. And again, the extent of our curation is love your work. Here's a space. Do what you want to do. And so far, we talked about this before. One of these times, it's not going to come through. Not on metal, it will, or it won't happen, but everyone has jumped at the chance to show their work in a semi-professional setting, and it's been great. So it's sort of, again, this loose curation. It's also kind of nice, this is a still from a show that Chad curated for the opening of the blog. He started with Margot Harrington. But the idea behind this, and this is another sort of still from The Power Went Out. It was at night around the city where everyone turned off the lights at 8 o'clock. But basically, instead of coming in to view work on the walls, we left what we were working on in the background up. But people would come in, sit down at the table, grab a drink, and start to draw. It was a great icebreaker. And then they put their own artwork up on the walls, which is what you're seeing here. And basically, by the end of the night, filled the entire gallery.
And it got more hilarious as the night went on.
And then somebody walk around and put boobs on everything. So every single individual drawing.
So it's not just gallery events, it's fun. And here's, Alex, this was that music event you did. Just worth stepping back to the blog. I think that is something else that, again, has continued to amaze us, how much it's exploded. Do you want to talk about sort of the traffic you
Sure.
get?
I just like pure mechanics. We use Shopify. If you don't know what Shopify is, check it out. It's a pretty awesome platform that allows you to build e-commerce sites with a very limited knowledge to a very expert knowledge, but it kind of handles all the back end. So the actual site itself we constructed like Ruby on Rails, and then we have this whole other end, which is this shopping, part of the site, and that's all on Shopify. We've always used these tools that are free or cheap or out there that are good because we don't have the money, we don't have the time to go in there and completely build, heavy, serious websites. So what we try to do is integrate with tools like Shopify or FeedBurner, Google Analytics, or Campaign Monitor, which is email blast software. We use all these tools out there to get the most bang for our buck, essentially. Our site's grown a lot since it started. It's consistently sort of doubling up. We get around 30,000 unique visits every month just through our site, and then we have another 1,200 people subscribing to our FeedBurner. So that means that on an average month, we're reaching around 50,000, 60,000 visitors. It wasn't always like that, but it's cool. The other thing that's really neat about our site is a good more than a third of the traffic is from other countries. We get traffic. We get people buying stuff from our store. From every continent, every major market.